and then also what I think you struggle with the most, which means it's something that's going to be on your test. Long division, you'll see at least one of these, and I'll make it so you can't do synthetic division. Like I'll make it dividing by a quadratic or something with a coefficient in front of it. But long division, pretty straightforward. That was all review. Synthetic division was brand new. I think we've done enough of it at this point where the skill of synthetic division could come up in isolation, but it may just come up in kind of like our warm-up homework quiz was for today. The one thing to remember about synthetic is you can't use it if you're dividing out a quadratic factor. You can't use it, meaning if someone's asking you to divide by x squared minus 9, you can't just pull a 9 out in front and do it. It won't work. So you can't do it when you're dividing by a quadratic factor. You can do it, but I didn't show it. Well, did I show you how to do it? Yeah, where you put a negative 1/3 out in front instead of that. So I did show you that. So you just have to know that if you are going to use it to divide out a 3x plus 1, you use the root of negative 1/3 out in front. And then the remainder theorem, which you all, again, solid review. Finding zero. So you got to know if your P's and Q's are, I'm not going to say P's and Q's just so you know. That's very informal. I say that quickly because I know what that immediately registers with you. It's the rational zero theorem. So if I say, what are all the possible rational zeros, you have to know that that's what that is. Okay? And again, those are possible rational zeros. I'm not saying what are the rational zeros. What are the possible rational zeros? And then when it gets to like our actually finding the zeros, you can, if it says to use the rational zero theorem, list your possibilities, and then you don't need to test randomly. You can use your calculator to direct you as to what to test. And then when it says, like on our notes, find all of the zeros, whether they're rational, irrational, or complex, you're going to start by dividing out synthetically, hopefully, the rational ones until it gets down to a quadratic, and then you can do the rest. Okie doke. Either by the quadratic formula or by teeing it up, whatever. And then the only other thing that you probably need to review, and you'll see it on your review sheet, is actually writing the equations. Yeah. Yeah. You have to multiply it out. Yep. Oh. I blame Mrs. Frazier. No, I'm just kidding. I'll multiply them out for you before you leave today, and then I'll tell you what they are. But on the, do they say, oh, right, apparently they do, all the threes. Yeah. I wonder if, I'll do them out and I'll give them to you by the end. But that part is just your algebra 1, right? Yeah, no, that's confusing. You should. If it says polynomial, you should multiply it out. Brock, or Connor. Okay. So on this, just make sure you know the general format. You know that it's raised to the multiplicity. So if it's a double root, you raise it to the second. If it's a triple root, you raise it to the third. If there's imaginary roots and they only give you one of them, you know that they come in conjugates. Make sure you distribute your negative. Make sure you multiply out your imaginaries first and foremost, and then sometimes they'll give you a point to plug in. They don't on this one. They don't on this one. Finally, down here, they start to give you a point to plug in so you can actually find the value of A. But also knowing that if they give you an irrational root, like if they ever tell you that you have a root of 2 plus root 3, then that also means you have a root at 2 minus root 3. So imaginaries come in conjugates and irrationals come in conjugates. And with both of those, especially when they're binomials, you definitely have to make sure you remember to distribute your negative and FOIL out the trinomial times trinomial before you move on to plugging in the point. So, does that make sense? Any questions? So, start working on your review sheet. If and when you have questions, if I feel like it's something important enough to bring up to the group, I will.